Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the May 4th, 2016 Planning Board meeting of the Town of Smithtown. Before we proceed with this evening's agenda, I ask that you please rise and join us in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. The chair recognizes the planning department for the reading of items recommended for adjournment this evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the planning board. The planning department would like to recommend the following items for adjournment because the applicants are not ready to be heard. Under zoning petitions, number 1, 2012-04, Storybook Homes, Nesconset. Number 2, 2012-02, Carlson Associates, Kings Park. Number 3, 2015-05, Thomas Gerswally, Kings Park. Number 4, 2010-06, KVC Holdings, under waiver requests. Number 5, 773 Scholar Estates, Comac. Number 6, 1135 2ME Platte, St. James. Number 7, 911A, Glenhill Northern, St. James. Under final subdivisions, number 8, 1156 Map of Open Meadow, Fort Salonga. Under preliminary subdivisions, number 9, 1158 Gnarled Hollow, Smithtown.
Is there anyone present here this evening who wishes to be heard on any of the matters recommended for adjournment? There being none, is there a motion to adjourn the items as read by the planning department?
Motion to adjourn items 1 through 9 as read.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The items 1 through 9 are adjourned. Next item on the agenda is a waiver request, item number 1101, Flynn Platte, Kings Park. Is there anybody? Well, you have to read the memo, and then.
The applicant is requesting to waive the private improvements on lot number 1 within the subdivision known as Map of Flynn Platte, number 1101. The Map of Flynn Platte was granted conditional final approval by the Planning Board on May 7, 2008. A performance bond estimate in the amount of $89,405 was approved by the board and subsequently signed by the chairman. The applicant submitted the bond monies and all related materials to the town, and the town board accepted the performance bond on July 15, 2008. The applicant submitted a waiver request to this department April 7, 2016, and the application was distributed to all departments concerned for review. The request is to waive the following private improvements on lot number 1. They are 1, 1,570 feet of retaining wall, and 2, roof dry well. The engineering department has no objection to the waiver requests in that the retaining wall and dry well on the undeveloped lot number 1 will be required and reviewed during the building permit application process when a proposal for a new house is submitted for the last lot. The highway department has no objection to the waiver requests. The traffic safety department has no comment. The planning department has reviewed this request and has no objection to waiving the remaining private improvements. The retaining wall and roof drywall will be required to be installed as a condition of the building permit for the new dwelling. Therefore, it is unnecessary to keep them on the performance bond. The planning department offers the following resolution for the board's consideration. Be it resolved that the planning board hereby approves the request of Lawrence Flynn to waive the construction of 1,570 feet of retaining wall and the roof drywall on lot number 1 within the subdivision known as Map of Flynn Platte, number 1101, for the following reason. 1, the retaining wall and the roof drywall will be required to be installed as a condition of the building permit for the dwelling on lot number 1.
Thank you. Good evening. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, Lawrence Flynn, 128 Church Street, Kings Park, New York.
You've heard the recommendation of the planning department,
Yes.
and you have any comments?
All public improvements have been done.
Okay, the public improvements have been done.
Yes.
Is there any other questions, comments?
No, but I'm here to answer any questions that you may
Okay.
have.
Any questions from any members of the board? There being none, any members of the public who wish to be heard on this matter? There being none, board confident that has enough information on this matter?
Yeah, I think so.
Do we have a motion for the resolution as read by the planning department?
In the matter of Map of Flynn Platte number 1101, I move that we adopt the resolution as read in accordance with the recommendation of the planning department.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? There being none, the motion passes and the resolution is adopted unanimously.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda, number 1165, Kaposi Plat in Nesconset. Is there anyone here? Oh, you're going to read your recommendation, and I guess council is ready?
The request is to waive the sidewalks, street trees, curb breakage, erosion control, final record as-built survey, and Type B patch within the subdivision known as map of Capizuli Plat number 1165. The applicant is also requesting to waive conditions F and G of the final plat approval. A portion of this waiver request was first heard at the last planning board meeting on April 20th, 2016, and was adjourned because the planning board wished to inspect the property and because additional items needed to be added to the waiver request. The planning board approved this two-lot subdivision and a performance bond estimate of $12,880 on March 18th, 2015. The applicant is requesting to waive 116 linear feet of sidewalk, 232 linear feet of curb breakage, 4 street trees, 200 linear feet of erosion control, 1 final record as-built survey, 50 square yards of Type B patch along Locust Drive, and conditions F and G of the final approval. The planning department objects to waiving the installation of 116 linear feet of sidewalk along Southern Boulevard for reasons stated in our memo dated April 15, 2016, read at the last planning board meeting. We recommend that the applicant submit a payment to the sidewalk fund in lieu of installing the required sidewalks. The planning department met with the applicant on April 22, 2016, and marked out 2 street trees, 1 on Locust Drive and 1 on Southern Boulevard. There are healthy trees found along both roads that can substitute for the remaining 4 trees needed per the performance bond. Therefore, the street tree requirement will be satisfied and the waiver is unnecessary. The planning department does not object to waiving the requirement of 232 linear feet of curb breakage and 50 square yards of Type B patch on Locust Drive. Any damage caused to the curb or road as a result of building the new dwelling on Locust Drive must be repaired before a certificate of occupancy can be issued. Therefore, there is little reason to have these as requirements on the performance bond. The planning department does not object to waiving conditions F and G of the final approval. These conditions will be implemented at the time building permits are issued for lot number 1. The planning department does not object to waiving 200 linear feet of erosion control because the town code requires that property owners implement certain erosion control measures as a condition of a building permit for a new dwelling. The planning department has no objection to waiving the final record as-built survey because no changes were made to the public improvements along the subdivision. The engineering department has no objection to the waiver requests. The highway and traffic safety department have no comment. The planning department offers the following resolution for the board's consideration. Be it resolved that the planning board hereby denies the request of Philip and Geraldine Capizuli to waive 116 linear feet of sidewalks within the subdivision known as map of Capizuli Plat number 1165 for the following reason. 1, Southern Boulevard has been identified as a location where sidewalks are needed, and the applicant has the option to submit a payment to the sidewalk fund in lieu of installing sidewalks. Be it further resolved that the planning board hereby denies without prejudice the request to waive the planting of street trees, and be it further resolved that the planning board hereby approves the request to waive 232 linear feet of curb breakage, 200 linear feet of erosion control, the final record as-built survey, 50 square yards of Type B patch along Locust Drive, and conditions F and G of the final approval within this subdivision known as map of Capizuli Plat number 1165 for the following reasons. 1, any damage caused to the curb or road as a result of building a new dwelling on Locust Drive must be repaired before a certificate of occupancy can be issued. 2, the erosion control be required as a condition of the building permit. 3, no changes were made to the public improvements along the subdivision, therefore no final record as-built survey is needed. 4, conditions F and G will be implemented at the time building department permits are issued for lot number 1.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant, Mr. Capizoli, who's seated behind me. Of course, we agree with the recommendation so far as it recommends to this board the waiver of certain items. However, there's one thing that always ceases to amaze me is the planning department recommends that either we put in sidewalks on Southern Boulevard or we pay money to this elusive sidewalk fund. there is precedent for this board and the boards previous to waive the requirement of sidewalks and not require the applicant to pay money into a sidewalk fund. The area between the section of roadway, if you will, where the sidewalks are recommended to be is between Town Line Road and Smithtown Boulevard, about a half a mile. There's no sidewalks there, and there'll never be any sidewalks there. So for the board to tell my client, and obviously it's your prerogative to pay this money into a sidewalk fund, it's never going to get spent. I've been doing this for a very long time. I've never seen it spent. So we asked the board to consider that and consider waiving the sidewalks or the money in lieu of the sidewalks. We have planted the trees, so there's no issue with respect to that. I don't know if Matt went there and checked it out, but the trees have been planted, and the surveyor will be coming shortly in the next week to plant the monuments, to put in the concrete monuments. So we asked the board for the resolution as provided by the planning department, with the exception of the sidewalks, which I think, in all fairness, should be waived, and the money into a fund that really is never used.
Mr. Tramarko, so as far as the trees are concerned, the denial without prejudice, the trees, that's not an issue anymore?
The
Because you
trees are
planted
in,
them?
yeah.
Okay. Now, with respect to the sidewalk issue, did anybody indicate to you how much money they would expect to be paid into this fund by your client?
Well, I think they would look at the performance bond estimate and come up with that number, I guess.
Do you know what it is?
Yeah, I could tell you. Thank you. My client's faster than I am. $2,320, $2,320.
So, is it the planning department's position that the applicant should be required to put in sidewalks in front of his house, where there's no sidewalks anywhere on that whole block, as far as you can go to Town Line and as far as you can go to Southern Boulevard? Or, if he doesn't want to do that, he puts money into the fund, but he does have the option of putting in the sidewalks?
That's correct.
Because I went there over the weekend, and I didn't see any sidewalks anywhere on either side of the road. And I don't know if I disagree with Mr. Tramarko's contention that there won't ever be sidewalks there. I would say certainly not while anybody who's in this room is still alive. I'd go that far.
I agree.
So myself, I'd be inclined to not require a private citizen to give money to the town to be held, which for me looks like for sidewalks that'll never ever be built on that block, not within the lifetime of anybody who's here now. That's just my position.
I agree with that.
Seems reasonable.
It does.
But you said the trees are already planted, so we could just vote on that to approve it, and if it's done, then that
Right,
matter is
right.
taken care of.
And I think Matt indicated that they were in, he checked it.
I've met with the applicant to plant the trees. I have not checked to see if they're in.
I was there on Sunday while they were planting the trees. Yeah,
Okay.
I was there when you were planting the tree. That was me who was there when going up and down there when you were planting the trees. So I
Yeah.
saw the trees.
The trees are in.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can, with that item can remain in the agenda,
That's
the
fine.
resolution. Any other questions from any members of the board? Any members of the public who wish to be heard on this matter? Okay, do you want to make an motion amending?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion with respect to Capizzoli Plat number 1165. I move that we adopt the resolution as read in accordance with the recommendation of the Planning Department, except that with respect to the first part of the resolution concerning the sidewalks, we simply substitute the word grants instead of the word denies. So that the first part of the resolution reads, be it resolved that the planning board hereby grants the request by Philip and Geraldine Capizzoli to waive 166 feet of sidewalks within the subdivision known as map of Capizzoli Plat, number 1165. And then we can delete the language that says for the following reason, and I think just leave it at that, because I think the reasoning is clearly set forth on the record as to why we're doing
Right.
that. That would be my motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The resolution is adopted.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, final subdivision, number 1166, land division, Novotny property in Kings Park.
The applicant is requesting final approval to subdivide a 2.5-acre parcel into 2 single-family lots. The final map of Novotny property, number 1166, is comprised of one tax lot that is rectangular in shape. There is an existing one-story building on the property that will be removed. The applicant proposes to construct a 2-story dwelling on each lot. The site has approximately 278 feet of road frontage on Old Comac Road. The site is zoned R43. Sunken Meadow State Parkway joins the property to the north and is zoned R43. The land that is south of the property is zoned RM7 and developed with single-family residences. The land east and west of the site is zoned R43 and is developed with single-family residences. The elevation ranges from 156 feet to 170 feet above sea level. There is a small, steeply sloped area in the far northeast corner of the property. The depth of groundwater is greater than 10 feet, and no problems are anticipated with regard to groundwater. The site is wooded with trees such as pine, oak, maple, and birch. The proposal appears to comply with the standards of the Suffolk County Sanitary Code with respect to sewage flow and setback requirements for septic systems for a single-family residence. The Engineering Department and Highway Department have found the subdivision acceptable. The Traffic Safety Department does not recommend any improvements and has no objection to the subdivision. Pursuant to the requirements of Section A14-24, Article 14 of the Suffolk County Administrative Code, the subdivision was referred to the Suffolk County Planning Commission. They responded that the subdivision is considered to be a matter of local determination. A decision of a local determination should not be construed as either an approval or disapproval. This application was referred to the Long Island State Park and Recreation Commission pursuant to Section 267 of the town law because this subdivision was affecting property within 500 feet of a state park or parkway. The Long Island State Park and Recreation Commission provided no written comments but verbally expressed that the state parks would not accept dedication of any open space along the parkway. The proposed subdivision meets the zoning requirements for the R43 district, with the exception of lot frontage at setback. The R43 requirement for lot frontage at setback is 150 feet. The applicant is proposing 114 feet for lot 1 and 118 feet for lot 2. The planning department sketched a yield plan that demonstrates that the property can be subdivided into 2 conforming lots by building a 50-foot radius cul-de-sac along the west property line. Subdivision design standards require a minimum radius of 60 feet. However, the planning board has consistently approved cul-de-sacs with 50-foot radii, as it has been proven that this provides adequate space for large vehicles to turn around. The advantage of the proposed design is that it would reduce the potential environmental and fiscal impact of building and maintaining a new road. The planning board is authorized pursuant to Section 322-30.4 to grant the necessary variances because they would not increase the yield of the property and reduce the amount of clearing. In determining whether to grant the variances, the planning board is required to weigh the request with respect to the following 5 area variance considerations. 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties will be created by granting of the area variance. 2, whether a benefit sought by an applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than by an area variance. 3, whether the proposed variance is substantial. 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. And 5, whether the alleged difficulty necessitating the area variance was self-created by an applicant. The planning department recommends approval for the variances because 1, the variances will not create an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood. The proposed lot frontage at setback of 114 feet and 118 feet for lots 1 and 2, respectively, are consistent with the frontage in the vicinity. The average frontage for the 7 nearest lots is 119 feet, and the difference between the proposed frontages and average frontage is not significant. Two houses can be built in full compliance with the zoning regulations by building a cul-de-sac. However, the cul-de-sac would create more of an environmental and physical impact than the proposed layout. Additionally, the subdivision meets the criteria for a clustered subdivision pursuant to section 248-31B2A because it impacts the following resources. 1, prime agricultural soil. The Suffolk County Soil Survey identifies soil type on the property as Haven Loam, which is in capability class 2. 2, land in hydrogeological zone 1. 3, mature woodlands. 4, land adjacent to state land or state parkway. In December of 2015, the Planning Department advised the applicant that the ordinance requires clustering. However, the applicant has preferred the Planning Board make a decision on the plat as drawn. The resources mentioned above are not as critical as some other resources, such as wetlands or steep slopes. Therefore, the Planning Department recommends a smaller cluster than the Planning Board would ordinarily require. This department recommends preserving the rear portion of the property adjacent to the parkway by placing a conservation easement on all land within 100 feet of the rear property line, approximately 0.7 acres of land. There should be no development, regrading, clearing, or dumping permitted in the easement. Typical of all cluster development, the creation of the easement should not reduce the maximum gross floor area permitted on either of the lots. Section 248-24 of the subdivision regulations states that each subdivision is required to show a park area of at least 2 acres per 100 buildings. However, the Court of Appeals has ruled that the town cannot require the reservation of park area unless the Planning Board determines on a case-by-case basis that a need for parkland exists with respect to the individual subdivision. Based on the community facility study in the town's comprehensive plan, there is a need for parkland in the neighborhood in which the subdivision is situated. This subdivision share of meeting the need is approximately 0.006 acres. In cases where the Planning Board determines that a suitable park cannot be located or is otherwise not practical, the subdivider is required to pay a cash equivalent prior to filing the map. Given the location and small size of this subdivision, a dedication for park space would not be practical. Therefore, the payment of an equivalent park fee established at $3,600 is recommended as a condition of final plat approval. Old Comac Road is identified as a secondary arterial highway. Normally, the Planning Department would recommend sidewalks be constructed along a second arterial highway within a subdivision. However, there is low traffic count on Old Comac Road. There are no pedestrian generators in the vicinity, such as schools, parks, and shops. Therefore, we see no reason to recommend the applicant install sidewalks and did not include sidewalks on the performance bond. Further, 1, letters assuring availability of the utility service have been received from the Suffolk County Water Authority and PSE&G. 2, the Kings Park Central School District has acknowledged the subdivision. 3, the amount of the inspection fee is estimated at $1,043. 4, the amount of the park fee is estimated at $3,600. 5, the amount of the performance bond is estimated at $13,035. 6, the amount of the cash deposit is estimated at $1,000. 7, the amount of the performance bond to be posted is $12,035. The following resolution is recommended for a map of Novotny property from the Department of Environment and Waterways pursuant to State Environmental Quality Review Act. Be it resolved that the Planning Board of the Town of Smithtown does hereby issue a secret negative declaration, determination of non-significance. An EIS is not necessary in the matter of the application for subdivision approval by Kings Park, New York, LLC for map of Novotny property, number 1166, for the following reasons. A, the proposal does not appear to significantly threaten any unique or highly valuable environmental or cultural resources as identified in or regulated by the Environmental Conservation Law of the State of New York or the Smithtown Town Code. B, the parcel does not appear to suffer from any severe environmental development constraints, no poor soil properties, no high groundwater, and no unmanageable slopes. C, the small size and nature of the proposal mitigate against a significant adverse impact upon the environment. D, the proposal appears to be consistent with the planned use of the parcel and compatible with neighboring land uses. E, the project as proposed on the tree preservation and land clearing plan prepared by Pat T. Secafico, licensed land surveyor, and dated March 22nd, 2016, provides for the retention of a significant amount of existing trees and natural vegetation upon development of the subject parcel. Such preservation shall be ensured by the placement of snow fencing or orange mesh construction fencing along all limits of clearing and around any individual trees to be preserved within clearing areas. This should be done to the satisfaction of the Environmental Protection Director, and said fencing shall be maintained in place by the applicant until the completion of all land clearing and grading activities at the subject parcel. The Planning Department recommends approval and offers the following resolution for the board's consideration. Be it resolved that the final plat of map of Novotny property is hereby approved, subject to the following conditions. A, posting of a performance bond in form and amount specified by separate resolution of the planning board and for a term of 2 years. B, posting of a general liability insurance policy to run concurrently with the term of the performance bond and in accordance with other provisions of Section 248 of the Code of the Town of Smithtown subdivision regulations. C, payment of an inspection fee and cash deposit as established by a separate resolution of the planning board. D, payment of a park fee of $3,600. E, final approval of the drainage and regrading plans to the satisfaction of the town engineer. F, the final plat shall include all information required by Section 248-15 and 248-16 of the town subdivision regulations, the conditions of approval, and the office of the Suffolk County Clerk. A check print of the final plat shall be submitted to the planning department for review before the milers are prepared. G, a total of 6 street trees shall be planted approximately 35 feet on center. These trees shall be 3 inches to 3.5 inches in caliper, northern red oak, American sweet gum, tulip tree, white oak, or approved equals. Existing healthy trees may be substituted if they are protected from construction damage and are acceptable to the planning director. H, all necessary dedication papers shall be submitted by the developer to the planning department in complete and accurate form as one package, including but not limited to the performance bond, liability insurance policy, title report, and all required fees, at least 90 days prior to the expiration date of conditional final approval. Incomplete submissions will not be accepted. If the applicant is unable to comply with the above requirement prior to the 90-day deadline, an extension of the planning board's approval is necessary. A complete set of erosion control plans will be submitted for approval by the engineering department as deemed necessary by the engineering department. J, the proposal shall be substantially comply with the approved tree preservation and land clearing plan prepared by Pat T. Secafico, licensed land surveyor, dated March 22nd, 2016. Modification of this plan shall be subject to the review by the Department of Environment and Waterways. K, prior to the commencement of construction activities at the subject parcel, including land clearing or other site preparation work, the applicant shall abide by the following conditions. A, all limits of clearing and any individual trees to be preserved within clearing areas must be marked with snow fencing or orange mesh construction fencing. Said fencing shall be located no closer to the trunk of any tree to be preserved than the drip line of said tree. This area to be preserved shall be as indicated in the tree preservation and land clearing plan prepared by Pat T. Secafico, licensed land surveyor, dated March 22nd, 2016. B, upon completion of the installation of fencing as required above, the applicant shall provide written notice to the Department of Environment and Waterways requesting inspection of the limits of clearing as marked in the field by the cited fencing. C, the applicant shall not commence construction activities, including land clearing or other site preparation work, until the marked limits of clearing are approved in writing by the Environmental Protection Director. D, the snow fencing or orange mesh construction fencing used to delineate the limits of clearing shall be maintained in place by the applicant until the completion of all land clearing and grading activities at the subject parcel. L, a conservation easement shall be placed on all land within 100 feet of the rear property lines of Lot 1 and 2. There shall be no development, regrading, clearing, or dumping permitted in this easement. This easement shall be shown on the filed map. The owner shall be allowed the same size homes that would be permitted if the subdivision was not clustered. And be it further resolved that the chairman of the planning board is hereby authorized to sign the final plat, thereby approving said plat, after the town board has posted a performance bond of the satisfactory form and amount. And be it further resolved that the conditional approval of said final plat shall expire 180 days after the date of the resolution, and within 62 days after the chairman of the planning board signs the final maps of this plat, unless said plat shall have been duly filed or recorded by the owner in the office of the Suffolk County Clerk. Be it resolved that the planning board of the town of Smithtown hereby modifies the building zone ordinance of the code of the town of Smithtown for the subdivision known as map of Novotny property number 1166 as follows. Below is the modification of dimensional requirements. This table shall be shown on the final map to be filed in the office of the Suffolk County Clerk. A fee of $1,000 is required for these variances. Be it resolved that the chairman of the planning board be authorized to sign the performance bond estimate for a map of Novotny property number 1166 in the amount of $13,035 and establishing an inspection fee of $1,043 and a cash deposit of $1,000. Therefore, the amount of the performance bond to be posted with the town shall be $12,035.
Okay?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. I've listened to and gone over the recommendations of the planning department with my client, and everything is fine. And we thank the planning department for such an exhaustive 7 or 8 page memorandum on this. The only thing that I take issue with, if you look at the first page of the memorandum and the last paragraph of page 1, it says the application was referred to the Long Island State Park Commission pursuant to town law, etc. The Long Island State Park and Recreation Commission provided no written comments, but verbally expressed that state parks would not accept dedication of any open space along the parkway. So why are we giving them, are we being recommended by the planning department to make a conservation easement for the last 100 feet of my client's property? It just doesn't make any sense to me at all. The Parks Commission doesn't care. There's a chain link fence at the back of the property, so what's the point? I mean, there's plenty of properties along the parkway. The parkway has a buffer of trees anyway, so you know, to require the last 100 feet, even though these are long lots, if the Parks Department of the state of New York doesn't want it, why do we want it? And so I asked the board to consider not providing that requirement because it doesn't do any good and it doesn't make any sense.
I guess it's my understanding that since the parks or the state of New York did wish to receive this property, that therefore the planning department is recommending a conservation easement.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Because the state of New York does not wish to receive or be in receipt of this property, the planning department, in order to preserve open space, I would imagine they recommended this conservation easement. Is that my
I don't think
They'll
understanding?
the
make
Parks-
a
state
buffer,
didn't
I guess, make a
recommend it.
bigger,
Right.
a little bit bigger
To
buffer.
enlarge the buffer.
I'm sorry, I don't think the state recommended
No,
anything.
they don't want the property.
Right,
So
and they didn't
recommended
recommend
that
an
we
easement.
set aside as open space.
I don't think they recommended an easement either, a conservation
No, they
easement.
did not, but that is as an alternative to them accepting the land. Would you care to further elaborate?
Sure. The reason for the conservation easement is that the subdivision regulations actually set forth requirements for the planning board with respect to clustering. It mandates clustering if the site meets certain criteria. The criteria were outlined. Matt had read them before, but a number of the criteria are met on this property, which is that there are mature woodlands, that there is prime agricultural soil on the property, and that it adjoins a state parkway. So even though State Parks does not wish to acquire or accept dedication of any of the property, the planning board is still required by the town law or town code to cluster this development. So rather than require any dedication, we were recommending a conservation easement.
In other words, you want to keep that 100 feet the way it is now.
That's correct.
I propose a
fine.
compromise. Make it 50 feet in the rear, because, you know.
Do I hear 75?
Exactly.
You know, what's the point? And besides, in the last 100 feet, the zoning doesn't allow anything but accessory structures. Doesn't allow, you can look at the map, the building envelope goes back to 100 feet. You know, this is on even the proposed house. So the only thing we would ever do there, and I don't think they would do anything, but maybe 50 feet makes more sense because you're taking away the use of my client's property. to me, it doesn't,
Yeah, one of the property goes back 406 feet on one side, and it looks like 550 feet or 53 feet on the other.
right.
But again, we are required by town code to,
Keep it 100?
The town code insists that it's 100 feet. Can it be 50? Because I imagine anybody who's actually living right on top of that parkway is going to more than likely forever keep a buffer anyway. Who wants to look at a parkway?
Right, the town code does not specify what the requirements of the cluster
So
are.
we can-
That's up to the board.
So we can reduce that 100 feet?
It can be changed, it can be reduced, increased, or changed however, however the board feels is appropriate.
I don't believe it's mandated, it's got to be 100 feet, though.
No,
That's what
that's
she
what I
said.
just
That's-
answered.
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't
It
hear
has to
it.
be there, but it doesn't have to be 100 feet.
Right.
That's just their recommendation, I guess, based upon your inspection of the site, what you think would be appropriate as far as how much of that area should be maintained the way it is now. And it's your opinion that it should be 100 feet.
That's correct.
yeah, I agree with Mrs. DeSorby that whoever lives there or constructs a home there is not going to want to clear to the parkway anyway.
Right.
So I don't understand.
It might be
the reluctance.
academic.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't understand the reluctance to make that part of our decision.
Well, because it's my client's property, it's not the planning department's property, and it's not the planning board's property. It's my client's property, and 50 or 100 really doesn't matter. If we do 50, at least he can go back that 50 feet. And I don't see anybody, whizzing by in a car that's going to say, oh, my God, I see a shed 60 feet from 60. We don't even know how many feet the parkway allows before its property line. The right-of-way is certainly not equidistant with that property line. Probably at least 50 or 100 feet going down the road. But it's the board's prerogative, and that's the only objection that I have.
I'm willing to change it to 50 feet if anybody,
I'd rather keep it at 100,
100?
personally.
yeah.
I'll keep it at 100.
I'd rather stay at 100.
Mr. Earhart?
Oh, I think there are reasons, they've been there, they have reasons. I think 100 is not unreasonable, given
Okay.
the
So-
area.
So we have 4 for 100, so we'll proceed
I
with
guess
that
it's
part.
100.
Now, we have several, is there anybody present here this evening who wishes to be heard? Okay. Yes.
You go to
please.
Mike and introduce yourself, please.
Probably anybody who's going to live there is going to want to keep it 100 at least anyway. You would think, right?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Ralph Solomon. My wife Sharon and I reside at 261 Old Comac Road, Kings Park, adjacent to the property that's under consideration.
Okay, so you'd be one of the lots to the east or west?
To the east, I believe.
Okay.
It's directly adjacent.
Okay.
We've resided at this property for 14 years. Couple of things. This is the first time we've been to a meeting of this kind, and I was just kind of wondering, are the neighbors entitled to have been prior notified of these plans? Certainly, we've not received any prior notification.
Well, some
They-
are and some aren't, but I'm sure she'll explain it. Depends on how close you are.
Adjacent.
The property owners are required to post the property. They are not required to send mailings out. So the property had to be posted with a sign, and then it was advertised in the local newspaper, but you wouldn't have gotten a direct notification.
Okay, understood.
It is
But there
posted.
was a sign.
I believe a sign was placed there
Right.
2 days ago, rather last week, end of last week. Next thing is, I noticed in the proposed plans, there's a cul-de-sac planned. I'm kind of wondering where a cul-de-sac would fit into this property. All of the homes on the street directly face the frontage of the road.
That was an alternative plan, I believe, and we felt that this was keeping more character with the neighborhood. So we divided, thus you see the division of the two lots rather than having a cul-de-sac go in, and
So there won't be a cul-de-sac in,
that's,
on
that
the
is,
prop-
that is
That's
correct.
correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I appreciate that. Also, and I thank the board for keeping the rear at 100 feet from the state property. That's well in keeping with the neighbors in the area. We all have our land essentially well away from the state borderline, and it's certainly beneficial to all of us to have that heavily wooded property as a buffer.
Do you find that being heavily wooded buffers noise as well as a view of the?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. The high, particularly in the summertime when there's more traffic heading into Sunken Meadow Park, there's a good deal of motorcycles and heavy traffic, and we find that extra buffer helps to mitigate the noise from the highway.
Well, you
And
know,
also, it's aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
It's good to have that land there.
Well, I would just think that anybody who's going to live there is going to want that buffer there anyway.
I would,
And
yeah.
if whoever moves in there doesn't want it, they have the option to try to come back before the board to get relief from the covenant. And if they have a good reason, they can make their application and it'll be either granted or denied. But I think for now, personally, I'm in agreement with the planning department's recommendation to keep it at 100.
I thank you for that. It certainly is well within keeping with current conditions. Lastly, I was curious as to the placement of the two homes on the lot. I noticed there were setbacks mentioned of 114 and 118 feet respectively. Has that been planned in accordance with the setback of the other homes, existing homes on the street? So that we don't wind up looking at the back of somebody's house.
They meet the requirements for the front yard setback. If you see on the screen there, that's their proposed subdivision. It's sideways, because it would come up bigger on the screen. So up here is east. You'd be in this area.
That's my, yes, that's my
But
lot.
this is the property as they're proposing the subdivisions. This is be a house as well as this, and they do meet the front yard setbacks for the R43 zoning requirements.
So if I may go to the...
Yeah.
Got to take the microphone with you though, sir, if you're going to talk, okay? You can take it out of there.
Got it. So
And the parkway would be along right here.
yes. So each of these homes the front would be facing
Yes.
the street.
Correct.
Okay. My home is in this lot here, and I'm approximately 115 feet back from the roadway. So I just wanted to be sure that, if possible, if it's planned properly, that the houses are, the new houses are within line with existing homes.
So yours is 115, you said?
I'm at 261 Old Comac Road. Yeah, I'm about
Do we have an
approximately
aerial
115
that we
feet
could
back.
show? Sir, there's an aerial photograph, and you can see your home.
You'd be
I
here.
believe my home is this one.
Mm-hmm.
So these setbacks, I believe, would be consistent with
Yeah.
what's on the street.
If I can elaborate just a little bit, the zoning ordinance requires that houses be set back a minimum of 60 feet in this zoning district. So they would be permitted to put the house as close as 60 feet to Old Comac Road, but no closer than that. So if your house is 115 feet, it is possible that their house could be closer to Old Comac Road, but that would be in compliance with the zoning ordinance.
But as far as you know, the plan is to set them back at the 114 and 118 foot.
No,
Ms.
the
Grant?
114, 118 feet is actually the width of the lot. That's the variance. that we
I
would be
understood that to be the setback.
There's two different types of setbacks. There's the front yard setback, so from the road to where your house, and then there's the frontage, which means how wide the property has to be at that front yard setback.
Okay.
So for that, I believe it was R43, is it 150?
150.
It's 150. They're asking to build 114 for one lot and 118 for another lot of width. And that's consistent with the neighboring properties along Old Comac Road.
All right, and then I guess I'll ask, how far back?
Sir, you gotta take the microphone with you, because it's being recorded.
How far back from Old Comac Road will each of these houses be?
60.
60 feet.
Yes. That's the minimum requirement for this zoning district.
Yes, but yeah, please come up and just give your name for the record.
I'm Sharon Solomon, 261 Old Comac Road. So we have beautiful trees around our house, okay? That makes it a nice area. Are you knocking down all the trees? Like, are you going to be leaving us a buffer? So as we see it right now, we're going to see somebody's back of the house. Right now, I look into a beautiful forest. So that's an important consideration. I don't think you guys took that into consideration. So what is going to be left?
Will this be a clear cut? You're going to, is the builder going to clear cut the
I
lot?
don't think that gets decided now, with all that stuff.
There
I
are
don't-
beautiful, beautiful, mature trees,
Well,
all kinds of
obviously
specimens.
something has to be cleared for the construction of the
That-
home.
Well, I
That's
understand
understood.
that, but a border, I mean, if, instead of looking at a cleared-out lot and a back of a building, instead of forest, we'd like to propose that you leave, or make them leave some trees, enough that it's nice, presentable.
It maintains
I
as
mean,
close
I-
as
I'm
possible
not
to current
sure.
conditions.
Right. That certainly affects our property and
Oh,
our
there's a
value.
I don't think this is the stage of the proceeding where that gets done.
We have a tree preservation
Yeah.
and land clearing plan that was submitted with the application, which we can make available for anybody to look at, so you can see what they were proposing to remove and what they're proposing to maintain.
And how do we get that?
How do we obtain a copy of that?
I have it here. You can take a look at it if you'd like.
Well, can we also get a copy of all the notes that, I'm sorry, I don't know your last name, but Matt?
Yes.
Yes. If you
yeah.
have an agenda there.
Yeah, we have the agenda.
Okay, on the bottom of the agenda should be a link, and you can go online and receive the entire report as read by the planning department.
Okay, thank you.
If
And
they,
anything that's not there, anything that's back up, it's not there, you can go down to the planning department, and I'm sure they'd be happy to allow you to look at it. But as far as a tree preservation and clearing plan, she has it here.
okay, because we would like a border, obviously, between our house and the back of somebody else's house.
Is your property cleared all the way to the property line?
No. Our
We-
builder
We keep
left,
it wooded.
our builder left a good deal of wood, mature trees between our home and the street.
Between the property line, your home and the property line, correct?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Right.
And behind us also to buffer, as my husband said, which you definitely want to buffer. You need that 100 feet.
All right, so you can make the plan available for their viewing if they so desire at the planning department.
Yes, and if
Or you
you'd
could
like
do
to look
so
at
after
it
the
this
meeting.
evening,
Yeah,
they
we
can look
will.
at it this evening, too.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your
No,
consideration.
Thank
for your
you.
input. Okay, anyone else wish to be heard on this application? There being none, I assume we have several resolutions that we have to do, including variances to be granted.
I
And
think first would be the secret, probably.
right, yes, we could begin with the motion.
Okay, in the matter of the map of Novotny property, number 1166, motion to adopt the secret negative declaration as recommended by the planning department.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Being none, the secret negative declaration is adopted.
And the final plat?
Yeah, we
In the matter of the final plat of map of Novotny property, number 1166, I move that we adopt the resolution as read in accordance with the recommendation of the planning department.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And the variances?
Yes.
In the matter of the map of Novotny property, number 1166, I move that we approve the variances as listed in the table of modifications.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The variances are approved.
And the performance bond?
Yep.
Yes.
In the matter of map of Novotny property, number 1166, motion to adopt the performance bond estimate in accordance with the recommendation of the planning department.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The performance bond is adopted. Are we all, I think we're all in order on this?
Yes.
Okay.
That's it?
Okay. Is there any other matters to come before the board? There being none, I accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned.